Hi, this is Jeannie Herold with the RPG Team Project, working with Ethan and Steven. I have to say, first off, I'm the world's worst public speaker, so hopefully I won't fumble my way too bad through this. And basically what we have is an RPG role-playing game, and we obviously use the JavaFX GUI for our program. This startup here is the game engine, which I created. And in the game engine, it handles all of the things as far as adding the puzzles to the board and the directions. The player object gets added to the board, the squares that create the grid pane, that are in the grid pane, that make the board look as it does. It handles different things to determine if the puzzles are solved or if the riddles or if the items have been picked up. We have these private methods that are used to handle the functionality and the communication between the puzzles and the board and the items in the board. And the event handlers, when you get down to them for the whichever direction the player goes, it'll look to see if that player is actually in a particular square, and that's done by getting the column location and row location using the grid pane and the player node, and determining if the player is on that square, and if the player is on that square, is there also a puzzle or an item hidden on that square. And we start with everything hidden, and once the player is on that square, then that item or puzzle will show up. This is the player input modal to get the name, and if you'll notice, any of the puzzles and the modals that start up is started from the game engine. I have them start on their own stage, and that stage has to be interacted with before it'll close out. You can't come back to the board, and that helps keep this on the board and not lost behind other items, and then all of a sudden they don't know why they can't play the game. So then they can pick their player profile, and then once they do that, these buttons become enabled, and of course you can close out of the game at any time. Down here is where there is an array list to hold the items that were picked up, and your score will increase according to puzzles you solve and items that you may pick up that may hurt or help your score. And I'm going to pause when I get to certain areas, but this is the directions, and you just traverse around the board looking for puzzles and items. And the functionality that I did for the communication between those happens. Same thing, you can't leave, but if you can't do until you've interacted with the board, but you can hit leave and then come back to the board, the object or the puzzle, and it'll pop up again. But in the event that you choose yes or no to either pick it up or leave it, either that item will stay on the board if you choose you don't want it, and if you choose that you want it, then that item will come down here in your array. And likewise with puzzles, that you find a puzzle, the treasure box will show if you've actually found the puzzle. But if you leave that puzzle, it'll stay closed, and it won't show that you found the treasure or add to your score until you've actually solved that puzzle. Let me go ahead and put this on pause so that I can solve some puzzles and show you the win. And so now I'm back on the board. I've tried to solve some puzzles. I've left items or put them over here, and now I've just come off of this square that I'm at, and I've the puzzle's just opened and I've solved it. And when you click off once, it'll come up and it'll say congratulations, you win. And then you close that. Once you close that, your buttons for navigation are disabled, and it comes up here, it says you won, and your score's 100 obviously, and that's where you have it at that. And one thing that I did do is you have to step off the square for it to record, and I think that honestly I would like to have figured that out when the stage closes, but I hadn't figured out that particular functionality as of yet. But other than that, that's how the board interacts with the with the puzzles and the items. And I will now turn it over to Ethan and Steven to explain how the puzzles and items work. And I really enjoyed working with these two guys, and it was a pleasure.